guys, it's Monica at cabinCrewExcellence.com, and today we're going to try to give you a little bit of an insight into an Emirates Airlines interview day. Because Emirates came to Romania and we are here, we thought we'll pay a visit to the candidates and spend some time with them and see what is happening throughout the day, so we can give you this little brief. Now, it was announced as an invitation-only assessment day, and it took place on August 8th, and we reached the venue at 9 o'clock in the morning, which was the announced starting time. To our surprise, when we entered the hotel lobby, the number of candidates present there was extremely overwhelming, especially considering the fact that it was announced, again, as an invitation-only assessment day. Now, from past experience and from the way we know that invitation-only events work, you would usually get around 100 or 150 candidates receiving an invitation after applying online. Well, at this event, we thought there are approximately 350 candidates, but later on found out that there were exactly 410 candidates attending the Emirates interview. Now, it's good to know that not all of these 410 candidates had an invitation. So some of them had an invitation, some of the candidates, well, most of them just took their chance and attended, hoping that they will be allowed to actually participate in the assessment day. So when we entered the hotel lobby, the general atmosphere was basically fear and worry, because everybody was realizing that the competition is so high. Those that received an invitation were actually hoping that everybody else that didn't receive an invitation is not going to be allowed to participate, because if they would be, then everybody's chances would be diminished with such a high competition. So when the recruiters came, the two recruiters that hosted the event, they actually decided to see everybody during the day, so they gave a fair chance to the candidates without an invitation as well. And they decided on the spot to turn the invitation-only event, so an assessment day, into an open day. That was a complete surprise and not a pleasant one for all the candidates that had an invitation to this event, because they were realizing now everybody's starting off from scratch and they had come mentally prepared to go through the stages of an assessment day, the reach test, English test, group games, and all the other stages. So they weren't ready for a CV drop-off day. Right, so candidates without an invitation, candidates with invitation, everybody started from scratch. It was fair game for everyone. Those that were really prepared moved on, whether they had an invitation before or they didn't. Those that weren't prepared, whether they were lucky to get an invitation from their online application, eventually they still fell through the cracks and they didn't move on to the assessment day. The big group of 400 candidates into two batches, and they invited each batch into a separate room to submit their CVs and photos and a form that the recruiters asked every candidate to fill in. Once they've submitted their documents, each candidate was expected to leave the room, and they were told by the recruiters to come back at around 4 p.m. and check the lists that will be outside the interview room, and if their names were highlighted, then they would be considered accepted for the assessment day, so they would have to come back the next day. At the end of the day, out of the 410 candidates, only 138 made the cut, so more than half were dismissed after the CV drop-off stage. So that was basically how, that is how the first day went. The second day, the 138 candidates that were selected to continue with the assessment day had to come back in the morning, and basically that's when all the stages have happened. The reach test, the English test, which a lot of candidates said it was very difficult, and again it boils down to your preparation, because the opinions were a bit different depending on the candidate. If your English is good, and it's a well-known fact that Emirates Airlines is very particular about the English level of their candidates, so you can't really show up with a basic or medium level of English. Your English has to be advanced, and if it is, then you wouldn't have had any problems dealing with the English test. All the other tests were standard, the group games, role plays and scenarios and so on. And at the end of the assessment day, out of the 138 candidates, there were 40 candidates left to continue to the final interview the next day. Now, we all know the final interview is not an eliminatory phase, so out of the 40 candidates, everybody completed the final interview. Now, we don't know exactly how many of them will actually get the job, and in our experience and knowing how Emirates Airlines operates and all the other airlines in the Middle East actually, it is a fact that not all the candidates that reached and completed the final interview will actually get a golden call, so not everybody's going to get the job. So another thing that this emphasizes is the fact that competition is extremely high. It must have been thousands of candidates that applied online for this event alone. There are thousands of candidates applying in every single city where any of these airlines is running recruitment drives. So out of the thousands that applied, only 100, maybe 150 received an invitation for this particular event. 410 showed up and only 40 made it to the final interview. So the percentage, the success rate is extremely low. What we give you is the recruiter's perspective, a very unique insight into the mindset of a recruiter and what they see when they look at you, when they look at your CV and photos, when they assess your behavior and attitude and everything else in between. So once again, we keep repeating this, preparation is very important. If you've prepared thoroughly, no matter how the scenario changes, you'll still be able to deal with it. If you had an impeccably prepared CV, properly taken photos, you're perfectly groomed and you're attending with confidence and all the knowledge and you know all the expectations that the recruiters have from you, there is no way you cannot pass the interview.